Donald Trump gets impeached. Again. But will he be convicted? Could this all backfire? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. President Trump has once again made history by being the first U.S. president to get impeached twice. Whoa, double impeachment. What does it mean? Well, we'll attempt to answer that question on today's episode. But first, we need your help. Like and share this episode to help us fight back against YouTube's demonetization. And support the show on patreon.com/AmericaUncovered. So, impeachment is perhaps the most devastating fallout for Trump in the aftermath of the storming of the Capitol building a week and a half ago. Actually, never mind. The permanent ban from Twitter is probably the most devastating fallout for Trump. What is Trump going to do when he wakes up at 4 a.m. now? Prank call Biden? No wonder he's so sleepy. Anyway, back to impeachment. First, a refresher in case you've forgotten Trump's previous impeachment trial a year ago. According to the Constitution, the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Unlike Trump's first impeachment, this time, the House did not launch an impeachment inquiry before bringing the formal article of impeachment. Just one day after the Capitol riot on January 6th, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi said that the House would impeach Trump unless the cabinet stripped him of his powers. That would involve Vice President Mike Pence and members of the cabinet invoking the 25th Amendment of the Constitution to remove President Trump from office. In fact, the House approved a resolution urging Pence to use the 25th Amendment on Tuesday. That's despite the fact that Pence had already sent a letter to Pelosi saying that he would not do that. Pence said that he believed using the 25th Amendment that way would be unconstitutional. That's because the amendment is designed to address what happens when a president is incapacitated or disabled, not to remove him from office for other reasons. Pence pointed out that Pelosi had said the same thing a few months ago when introducing legislation to create a 25th Amendment commission. Pence also urged Congress to avoid actions that would further divide and inflame the passions of the moment. The House clearly took his words to heart, as they voted to impeach Trump with only a week left to his presidency. The final vote in the House was 232 to 197. 10 Republicans voted with all of the Democrats, which means this was technically a bipartisan impeachment. What happens next? The Senate has to hold an impeachment trial. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to let the trial start immediately. And there were reports that McConnell privately backs the impeachment effort. But McConnell refused to reconvene the Senate in an emergency session, which means that they won't come back until January 19th. In a statement, McConnell said there wouldn't be enough time to hold a fair or serious trial before Biden is sworn in. So now, Trump's second impeachment trial will happen after Biden is president, which means that Trump could be the first president to be removed from office after he's already been removed from office. I can't imagine that Biden is thrilled with the idea of Trump taking up so much attention during the beginning of his presidency. But you know who is thrilled? The media. Think of the ratings. For Trump to be convicted, 2/3 of the Senate would have to vote against him. That means 17 Republicans would have to join the 50 Democrats. And if Trump is convicted, then a simple majority of senators could vote to disqualify him from holding public office again. And since Trump can't be removed from office once he's no longer in office, it seems like the real goal is to prevent him from running for president again in 2024. But can Trump even be tried in the Senate after he's already left office? Some experts say yes. Supporters point to the case of William Belknap, Secretary of War under President Ulysses S. Grant. In 1876, Belknap was about to be impeached by the House, but then he resigned. The House impeached him anyway, and the Senate had a trial, but Belknap was not convicted. Other experts say that a Senate trial after Trump has left office would be unconstitutional. The argument is that according to the language in the Constitution, the Senate's only power under the Constitution is to convict or not an incumbent president, and Trump would no longer be an incumbent president. There is also some question about whether Trump can be disqualified from holding future office if the conviction happens after he's already left office. There is no clear-cut answer to these issues, which means that Trump could challenge the Senate trial in court as unconstitutional, and that decision would ultimately go to the Supreme Court. Wow. Trump is going to be in the news for a long time. Think of the ratings! Okay, so what is Trump actually being impeached for? The House submitted only one article of impeachment against Trump: incitement of insurrection. Here's what Speaker Pelosi said about why Trump must be impeached.
We know that we faced enemies of the Constitution. We know we experienced the insurrection that violated the sanctity of the people's capital and attempted to overturn the duly recorded will of the American people. And we know that the President of the United States incited this insurrection, this armed rebellion against our common country. He must go. He is a clear and present danger to the nation that we all love.
The House impeachment resolution made three claims regarding Trump's incitement of insurrection. First, that Trump repeatedly issued false statements asserting that the presidential election results were the product of widespread fraud and should not be accepted by the American people or certified by state or federal officials. Second, that he made efforts to obstruct the certification of the election results. The resolution specifically cited the phone call Trump made to the Georgia Secretary of State that was leaked to the Washington Post. And third, it cited Trump's speech at his rally on January 6th, saying that Trump willfully made statements that, in context, encouraged and foreseeably resulted in lawless action at the Capitol, such as, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. So according to the House, that is why Trump was impeached for inciting insurrection. Now you could reasonably argue that Trump bears some responsibility for the riot at the Capitol, especially since he called for a rally on January 6th. But did he incite an insurrection? The legal threshold for incitement is very high because of the First Amendment's protections for free speech. As one law professor states, saying things that foreseeably move some audience members to act illegally isn't enough. Speaking recklessly isn't enough. The court was well aware that speech supporting many movements, left, right, or otherwise, that merely moves the majority to political action may also lead a minority of the movement to rioting or worse. It deliberately created a speech protective test that was very hard to satisfy. Trump used the word fight in his speech 21 times, but most of those uses were clearly metaphorical, like when he was talking about fighting against big donors, big media, and big tech. The New York Times made a similar point about how Trump's speech probably isn't incitement, legally speaking. According to the New York Times, Mr. Trump used a lot of violent imagery and insinuations as he whipped up anger among his followers, directed them to fight much harder, and sent them to march on the Capitol. But he never expressly directed them to commit crimes. And they also quoted Trump saying that people should peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Then, the Times immediately goes on to say, still, there has been agreement across ideological lines that Mr. Trump incited the riot. Okay, cognitive dissonance here, New York Times. You're saying it's legally not incitement, and then in the next paragraph, you're saying there's been agreement that it is incitement? I'm confused. Of course, as I said in our previous episodes about Trump's first impeachment, the president can still be impeached and convicted for something, even if it's not actually illegal. But National Review, a conservative media that does not like Trump, points out that Democrats may have overshot by impeaching Trump for incitement of insurrection. The article says that even if Trump can be impeached for incitement, using the words incitement and insurrection means that Trump's lawyers can argue that, legally speaking, Trump's actions were not incitement. The riot was not an actual insurrection, and that Trump did not cause that insurrection. The argument that Trump caused the riot with his speech on January 6 could get especially tricky as more information comes out that indicates the rioters planned it ahead of time. But one thing has become clear this past week. Impeachment, which is supposed to be a serious thing for Congress, is increasingly becoming a political tool for both Democrats and Republicans. On the Democrat side, they immediately threatened impeachment after the riot, fast-tracked an impeachment vote a week before Trump's term ends, and pressured the Republican Senate to hold a trial to remove Trump right away. Even the fact that we assume all 50 Democratic senators will convict Trump shows how partisan impeachment is. On the Republican side, there's been reports that Mitch McConnell is pleased about impeachment because it will be easier to purge Trump from the GOP. In both cases, it looks like Democrats and Republicans are more concerned about how Trump's impeachment helps their parties politically instead of helping the country. And on a political level, the haste to impeach Trump may actually backfire on them. They could have let Trump leave office quietly and fade into irrelevancy. But instead, Trump will now fight against his impeachment in a very public Senate trial. And as I mentioned earlier, it could even go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And this impeachment process may backfire in other ways too. Here's Republican Tom McClintock on why this sets a dangerous precedent.
In our passions this week, we've set some dangerous new precedents that will haunt us for years to come. Yesterday, we redefined intemperate speech as a physical incapacity requiring removal from office. Today, we define it as a high crime and misdemeanor. Well, the moment any member of this body gives an impassioned speech and the lunatic fringe of their movement takes license from it, be prepared to answer to this new precedent that we established today.
Surely this won't be a problem later. Just like Democrats targeting Republican accomplices after the Capitol siege won't be a problem later either. But on the bright side, think of the ratings. So double impeachment. What do you think it means? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching this episode of America Uncovered, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.